In the journey of semen retention and spiritual awakening, many men become aware of their own transformation, heightened energy, clarity, focus, and self-respect. But there's another layer that often goes unnoticed: how women perceive and respond to this transformation. Not all women can articulate it, but many instinctively expect certain traits from a retained man. These are not superficial expectations, but deep, energetic insistences tied to her subconscious, emotional, and spiritual needs. This topic is not about how to attract women or manipulate female attention. It's about understanding the energetic contracts that form between masculine and feminine forces when a man begins to hold and circulate his sexual energy. When a man retains, he becomes more than just physically present. He becomes energetically available in a way that activates certain desires and standards within a woman. Women may not say it aloud, but they expect a retained man to bring emotional depth, energetic consistency, leadership rooted in spirit, and the ability to remain grounded under pressure. These are not surface-level preferences, but spiritual necessities. A woman, especially one on her own path of growth, intuitively looks for these things in a man who claims to be walking a higher path. It's important to realize that semen retention is not just a personal discipline. It affects the field around you. Your aura strengthens. Your energetic signature changes. You radiate intention rather than desperation, direction rather than confusion. This shift causes women to engage with you differently, not only in romantic contexts, but in friendships, partnerships, and even casual interactions. So what exactly do women insist, consciously or not, from a man on semen retention? What are the unspoken, energetic demands she places on such a man? Let's explore the key aspects she looks for, silently, spiritually, and soulfully. Emotional groundedness in the storm. The first thing a woman insists upon from a retained man is emotional groundedness. In a world where many men react impulsively, seek validation, or crumble under pressure, a retained man is expected to be a sanctuary of calm. His emotional presence should offer stability, not chaos. She wants to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. A retained man often has access to higher levels of emotional clarity. His lack of frequent ejaculation allows him to circulate energy back into his emotional centers, the heart, the gut, the mind. This gives him greater control over his emotional responses. But women don't want emotional numbness. They want grounded transparency. She wants to feel your presence, not your detachment. This doesn't mean being emotionless or robotic. On the contrary, she insists on emotional maturity, your ability to hold space for her without trying to fix her or run away. She watches how you react when she's angry, vulnerable, or irrational. She wants to know if your strength is rooted in truth or if it's a performance that crumbles under challenge. The spiritual journey of semen retention includes facing your own shadows. The anger you suppress, the fear you hide, the sadness you've avoided, all of it will surface. A woman expects a retained man to face these shadows with courage and integrate them, not project them. She insists on internal mastery, not just external image. Ultimately, emotional groundedness becomes your shield and your bridge. It shields you from losing yourself in drama, and it creates a bridge for deeper connection. She wants to pour her emotion into a container that doesn't break. That's the first sacred expectation. Presence that penetrates the moment. More than anything else, women crave true presence. A man on semen retention begins to develop this naturally as his mind sharpens, his senses heighten, and his distractions decrease. But this presence must be intentional and aware, not accidental. A retained man is expected to bring the full weight of his being into the moment. This is not the same as being physically close. True presence means listening with your soul, looking with awareness, speaking with grounded intention. It's the way you look at her when she speaks, not wandering eyes, not distracted nods. She wants to feel like she is seen, not scanned, heard, not analyzed, witnessed, not judged. Women are energetically sensitive beings. They can feel when a man is holding space or mentally escaping. A retained man is expected to have the stamina, not just sexual but mental and emotional, to stay with her through the discomfort of growth, conversation, intimacy, and even silence. And presence isn't just for her. It's how you engage with the world, How you walk into a room, how you take up space without arrogance, how you move with purpose and not performance. Women insist that a retained man be a living presence, not a persona. Presence is the new power. It's what separates boys from men in the spiritual realm. You can meditate for hours, but if you can't be fully here when it counts, with your woman, with your vision, with your challenge, then you've missed the entire point. She knows this, and she will insist on it in ways she may never say aloud. Integrity as an unshakable foundation. Another silent yet non-negotiable expectation is integrity. A retained man carries amplified energy. He becomes magnetically attractive, even to those who may not understand why. This magnetism becomes dangerous if not rooted in purpose. A woman on a spiritual path can sense when a man's inner life doesn't match his outer claims. She may not say it, but she will withdraw. Integrity isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. When you say you stand for something, do you? When you promise a commitment, do you follow through? Are your private habits in harmony with your public identity? A retained man, especially one speaking of spiritual discipline, must be vigilant with this alignment. Women are often natural detectors of energetic inconsistency. A woman may test a man, not out of manipulation but out of instinct, to see if his energy collapses under contradiction. Do you preach discipline but flirt recklessly? Do you speak of self-mastery but get lost in lustful eyes? She will observe closely, silently measuring the depth of your inner anchoring. The journey of retention requires sacrifice, of temporary pleasures for long-term truth, and women subconsciously expect that sacrifice to yield spiritual fruit. Honesty, reliability, loyalty, and character. These aren't romantic ideals. These are survival requirements for a soul-desiring partnership with a king, not a boy. When a man retains and walks in integrity, he becomes rare. Not because others can't do it, but because few choose to. And rarity creates respect. That respect is what makes her open, trust, and flow. Without it, her feminine essence retreats into protection mode. She insists on integrity not just for her safety, but for your own elevation. Vision rooted in purpose, not ego. One of the deepest energetic expectations is that a retained man carries a vision, a direction that transcends personal gain or superficial achievement. Semen retention builds internal pressure, a literal and metaphysical charge that seeks expression. Without a vision, that energy turns chaotic. With vision, it becomes divine fuel. Women, especially intuitive ones, are drawn to men with purpose. But this isn't about career success or wealth. It's about spiritual mission. A retained man must ask himself, where am I leading my life? What am I building beyond myself? A woman insists that your path be clear, not perfectly executed, but authentically pursued. When you have a mission, you naturally become less dependent on external validation. You are no longer seduced by temporary highs because you are focused on long-term elevation. This independence creates space for her to express her femininity without needing to carry the weight of direction. That polarity ignites a powerful attraction, and yet your purpose must not be ego-driven. A woman will feel the difference between ambition fueled by insecurity and purpose fueled by alignment. She wants to know, do you serve a higher cause or just chase applause? Do you walk the path even when no one watches? These things matter more than you know. She insists that a retained man does not waste his spiritual energy on empty wins. She wants your seed to feed your dream, not your desire. Your purpose becomes the container in which her trust, support, and inspiration can grow. Without it, her intuition hesitates, even if her words don't explain why. Energetic mastery and sacred sexual power. Finally, and most mysteriously, a woman insists that a retained man masters his sexual energy, not suppresses it. Semen retention is not celibacy, it is redirection. Women feel this energy instinctively. A retained man should not leak his energy through lust, nor block it through fear. He must transmute it into love, creativity, and sacred intimacy. Women often crave energetic intimacy more than physical. When a retained man channels his sexual energy through his heart, his touch becomes healing, his gaze becomes penetrating, His presence becomes magnetic. She can feel your energy wrapping around her before your hands ever do. This is sacred power, not dominance, but divine invitation. But here's the paradox. She does not want to be the center of your sexual universe. She wants to feel chosen, not chased. She insists on being desired without being worshipped. This balance is only possible when a man is in control of his urges, not avoiding them, but mastering them. Women are tired of being drained by men who don't know how to hold their own fire. A retained man is expected to carry this fire without burning her or himself. This is true Tantra, not the ritual, but the responsibility. Can you make her feel safe in your heat? Can you lead her to deeper realms of intimacy without losing your center? At the end of the day, her insistence is simple. Don't waste the power you've cultivated. Use it to bless, not bind. Heal, not hunt. Uplift, not impress. If you can do that, she will respond not just with affection, but with surrender. Not from weakness, but from divine recognition. Spiritual receptivity and higher awareness. A woman connected to her intuition and soul craves more than just grounded masculinity. She craves a man who is spiritually receptive. This means not only walking the path of discipline, but also tuning into higher realms of perception. A retained man often begins to tap into this awareness as his vital essence is conserved and redirected toward the third eye and crown chakras. She feels drawn to this kind of consciousness because it mirrors her own depth. Spiritual receptivity isn't about religious rituals or quoting scriptures. It's about being open to the subtleties of life, reading energy, sensing emotional shifts, and perceiving the deeper meaning behind everyday experiences. A woman insists that you don't just exist on the physical and mental levels, but that you operate in the unseen, with respect for mystery and soul. This kind of spiritual sensitivity also allows a man to be a better communicator. He can feel when something is wrong, even when she doesn't speak it. He can attune himself to her rhythms without becoming enmeshed in them. This balance between attunement and sovereignty is something women deeply crave, but rarely find. When a man retains, he begins to develop a natural empathy, not the weak kind that leads to self-sacrifice, but the strong kind that arises from true understanding. A woman insists on this connection, not to be fixed, but to be felt. She does not want you to solve her. She wants you to witness her soul in moments of chaos and clarity. Ultimately, spiritual receptivity is a mark of a man who is not closed off to life. A man who retains without awakening to spirit becomes rigid, but a man who retains and opens to spirit becomes whole. And in his wholeness, a woman feels safe to reveal her own light and shadow without fear of being misunderstood or abandoned. Mental strength and inner silence. While emotional and spiritual openness are vital, a woman also insists on a retained man having unshakable mental strength. The modern world is full of distractions, mental noise, and reactive thinking. A man who practices semen retention and spirituality is expected to rise above the noise, not through avoidance, but through internal mastery of his thoughts and focus. Mental strength is not about arguing better or being intellectually dominant. It's about the ability to hold silence within, to not react impulsively, to observe without judgment, to focus without scattering energy. Women respect this ability to stay centered in the mind, especially in the midst of emotional or situational storms. A retained man must not be addicted to stimulation. He must practice stillness. And from that stillness, his decisions come from clarity, not compulsion. When a woman senses that your mind is sharp, spacious, and quiet, she feels at ease. She doesn't need to carry your emotional and mental weight. She can finally rest in your calm. This mental discipline must extend into how you speak. Do your words reflect thoughtfulness? Do you speak from intention or from impulse? A retained man is expected to speak rarely but powerfully, to bring the energy of stillness even into conversation. A woman listens more closely to a man whose words carry presence. Mental strength is also the backbone of your commitment to semen retention. There will be urges, dreams, temptations, and stress. A woman subconsciously watches how you handle these waves. If your mind collapses easily, she cannot trust your path. But if you master your mind, she will trust your mission and feel safe joining you on it. The balance of power and humility. Power without humility becomes tyranny. And humility without power becomes weakness. A woman insists that a retained man embodies both in sacred balance. This is rare. Many men misuse the power that comes from retention and begin to dominate, manipulate, or spiritually bypass. But real attraction happens when a man holds his power with quiet humility. A retained man walks with a spiritual weight. His aura can influence, attract, and lead. But he must not become arrogant or feel entitled. Women observe closely. Do you carry your strength with softness? Can you lead without controlling? Can you be firm without being cruel? These are the subtle questions she asks silently through her body and energy. Humility also shows in how you handle praise, attention, or challenge. When she compliments you, do you puff up or stay grounded? When she disagrees with you, do you become reactive or remain curious? Your humility becomes the doorway to deeper connection because it tells her you're still growing, still listening, still evolving. Power without humility repels her feminine trust. It makes her feel unsafe, objectified, or dominated. But when she feels your strength guided by humility, she opens. She surrenders. Not from fear, but from admiration. She doesn't want a king who rules with fear. She wants one who listens, learns, and loves with discernment. This balance also reflects the deeper spiritual teaching of semen retention, that the more power you cultivate, the more responsibility you must carry. Women sense this imbalance instinctively. If your power grows but your humility fades, she will distance herself, even if she can't explain why. She insists on balance, not bravado. Authentic vulnerability, not emotional dumping. Vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, a woman insists on authentic vulnerability from a retained man, especially because his strength can be intimidating. But vulnerability does not mean being overly emotional or constantly expressing pain. It means being real, open, and willing to share your truth without shame. A retained man often builds an identity around discipline and strength. But if that identity becomes a mask, it creates emotional walls. A woman needs to feel the man behind the mission. She wants to see that you feel, that you care, that you hurt, that you hope. She wants to see your humanness, not your rehearsed perfection. This type of vulnerability builds deeper intimacy. It shows her that you are not afraid of your own heart. When you express your fears, doubts, or past wounds with presence and responsibility, she feels closer to you. But she insists that you don't emotionally dump on her. She is not your therapist, nor your rescuer. There's a fine line between sharing and spilling. A retained man must process his emotions through inner work first, meditation, journaling, breathwork, and share the distilled truth, not the raw chaos. Vulnerability becomes sacred when it's expressed with intention and maturity, not as a cry for validation. In the end, a woman insists on vulnerability because she wants depth, not just depth of mind, but depth of soul. She doesn't want a wall of masculinity that refuses to bend. She wants a bridge, a strong, open, conscious bridge where her truth and yours can meet without fear. This is how soul partnerships are born. Ability to lead without ego. The final silent expectation is the ability to lead, not through domination or demand, but through alignment and conviction. A retained man often embodies natural leadership energy. His aura becomes magnetic. His voice carries more weight. But women insist that he leads with vision, not ego. This leadership must come from your inner compass, not from insecurity or comparison. A woman feels safe when she knows you are clear on where you're going and why. She wants to feel that if she closes her eyes and lets you lead, she won't be let off a cliff. This requires deep inner clarity, not performative masculinity. Leadership in relationship doesn't mean control, it means responsibility. She wants to see you lead the energy, not just the logistics. Can you guide the tone of an argument toward harmony? Can you choose where your attention goes during stress? Can you hold her chaos with steadiness, not suppression? Most importantly, leadership is not about being right. It's about being willing to adjust the course when truth demands it. A retained man must be able to say, "I was wrong. Let's try a better way." Women don't follow men who pretend to be perfect. They follow men who are guided by purpose, humility, and adaptability. Ultimately, she wants to feel like she's in partnership with a man who leads with love, not ego. A man who walks ahead not to be superior, but to clear the path. A man who leads not to impress, but to uplift. In her own silent language, this is the kind of leadership she craves from a retained man. Becoming what she silently calls forth. So what do women truly insist from a man on the path of semen retention and spiritual growth? Not fancy words, not shallow performance, but authentic power, emotional groundedness, true presence, integrity, purpose, energetic mastery. These are the sacred currencies of masculine energy that feminine energy is drawn to and demands. And remember, her insistence is often silent. It shows up in her body language, her attraction, her withdrawal, her surrender. If you listen closely, not just to her words, but to her energy, you will hear her soul calling you into your highest self.